So, welcome back, beautiful people. You must really love amazing to keep watching this, and I believe you're excited as I am. So, the last time we talked about adding exams and also um, creating groups as well. So this time we're going to talk about adding examinees, and then we look into a few things about the exam and the group. Now, the basic thing about Smart Examiner is you develop the questions with the manager, and then you manage the exams and the examinees with the manager. Okay, so you add the exams, then you attach examinees to that exam that is supposed to take that exam, and then these examinees they log in with a client application. That's basically the idea about it. So we had to decouple some of all these things to be able to really address what the issues and the contents are, and make it very flexible to schools and organizations, and basically anyone that needs the such service. Okay, enough of that explanation. Let's just go on to this. Now, you could either add examinees by clicking on this, and adding them manually. You can create more tabs, but I would prefer, using importing from Excel sheets. And there are two Excel sheets we're going to be using to demonstrate a few things. So this is the very first one we're going to be using. It contains three students, as you can see, but there are four rows. We're going to be skipping the very first one because that's not a valid data. It's just a header to guide the entire contents within the file. Now, the second one, it's not so different from it. We just introduced two new fields. And so these are going to be like custom fields. So the manager application allows you to create custom fields to meet your needs, basically. So you can add a few other things. What is just required is the first name, the last name, and the gender. That's basically what is required by the application. Every other thing is optional. You can add custom fields, addresses, telephone numbers, basically anything you want. The manager allows you to do that. We're going to talk about how that works. Okay, so let's get back to this. So what I'm going to do is to click on this, and we're going to be choosing that file. And I have the file on my desktop. I believe it should be on my okay, I think it should be on my documents, if I'm not mistaken. So we have this. So yeah, so let's work with this first. You would notice that after selecting the file, it shows up here. The very first line shows up here, but I'm just going to go back to the selection process again. So let me click on this and let me point out a few things. So you would notice that we support Excel files, which is the XLS and XLSX extension, as you can see here. We also support text files or CSV files, basically any delimited file, provided you know what is separating the file. It could be a comma, it could be a hyphen, whatever. A lot of delimited files, and you would be able to import from there. But for the most part, we're working with Excel files, so we'll just stick with that. Now, we could want to preview the second line to make sure that our data is coming up well, but I'm going to uncheck this because I need it for the next screen, and I'm going to show you. So what we want to do is to skip, like we talked about. We want to skip the first line because it's just a header, and we really do not want that. And I'm going to assign these examinees to a group. Now, this is a very important thing, because this allows you to immediately work on the group, as opposed to adding each examinee one after the other to a group. So while you're importing, you can already put them in a group, and this saves you time. So if I go on to the next screen, I can see the file fields which we saw: the first name, middle name, last name, which we have on our Excel sheet, and then we want to map them to a known field which we have within the application over here. Now, if I was to say show the second line, if I come next, it's that second line that's going to show. But I want to be able to have a very good description of what I need so I don't confuse things up. Saying first name, I know that it's easy for me to map this to a first name. For a middle name, I can map it to our middle name. For a last name, I can map it to a last name. A gender, like we talked about, is compulsory. And then email, let's see, do we have an email address? Yes, we do. And we can actually map that. So what I just do next is click on start. And as we can see, we completely and successfully added our data. Now we skipped the first one, so that's why we just added 3 or 4. And as you can see, user requested to skip first row. So basically we're in good hands here. You can always copy the log to clipboard if you want to examine whether there are errors or see, whatever issues that might have happened, and you want to examine them properly in some of the text file or some of the document that you want to use to process this. But for the most part, I'm just going to click on finish right now. We can see the 3 examinees we just added to the rater subgroup. This is basically the group showing here. We see that there are 3 students here, and if we go to the tabular view, we can always search on this students. It's a long search, but for the most part, let me just type on one of them, and then we can see them here. Okay, so I think it's easier to work with them from here because we can see the data and know that we can concentrate on these 3. We can see examinee ID here. This was automatically generated because we did not specify any ID. Now, every examinee must have an examinee ID. This is what they use to log in on the client application. They also need to have a passcode, which they would also use to log in. So you need to provide this fields to the users. There's a lot of ways you can actually do that using the manager application. You can send them an email, a customized email, basically using our email template format. We're going to come to that. There are a lot of features stocked within manager, and you can also generate it as a report and maybe split it. That's what some schools do. So they just print it in a tabular form and then they split it and then give each student their login details. And yeah, that works as well. So these 2 fields are basically required. Now you have the ratel in front of this. That is like a prefix. It's something that you can change from the preferences menu using the miscellaneous settings. So if you want to customize what prefix shows up before the data, you just put it here, and you can be able to add a prefix to whatever the code is going to be. Now the next thing we're going to do before we talk about working with the examinees is to add these are the second data which we have here. Now we have 2 custom fields, but I'm thinking we should use this one to represent our examinee ID. You can provide your own examinee ID, like I talked about. If you do not provide, the system is going to automatically generate one for you with the prefix from the preferences settings. Okay, this class, I'm just assuming that we're in a school setting, and then these students belong to this particular class. So we're going to create this field. So we just have one more field to create, which is class. Like I said, we're going to use this in place of the examinee ID. Okay, so how do we do that? We come to edit. We can see add examinee custom field, and I'm just going to say class because that's what we have. And it's a simple text field. You could always, if you have a number field or you have a number that's going to have a decimal point, you could always select the one appropriate to it. So say text field has the field has been successfully added. For now, we don't need to create another one. If we scroll down here, you can see that we already have a class section here for data, but we don't have any information for this very student right now. So what we can do is to click on our import and we choose that file. Give me a second. Oh, we're going back to this. All right. So let us go back to documents and SMAX tutorial, and then yeah, we'll select this file. So we can see the data over here, and as we did in the previous one, we want to skip this, and we also want to assign it to this group to make it easier for us to work with. And then we go on to click next, and we already did this before, so I'm just going to be a little bit faster to save time. And for email, we're going to choose email. For the student number, like we talked about, we're going to use it as the examinee code. And for the class, we're going to select the new field which we just created, which is the class. And then I'm going to click on start. And as we saw with the previous one, we're able to successfully add the students. And coming down to the groups, we can see that we were able to add this data, and then the examinee ID is exactly what we specified. Now, if we click on any of these examinees which we just added and say examinee full details, so we'll go directly to the examinee details. And as you can see, the class information which we specified is right about here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is attaching exams to examinees, but I think we should probably do that in the next tutorial. Thank you so much for watching this, and see you in the next tutorial.